Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack 4 Business Podcast. Over 300 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game. Are you ready to discover what your Knack 4 business truly is? Your hosts are Bernie Franzgrote from Creative Insight and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc.
Today's topic is mastering business growth with peak experience strategies. From an audience perspective, this podcast is going to be how you can grow your business faster while staying clear on your purpose and building a winning team. Our guest today is Greg Hess from Coach Hess On Demand. Greg discovered his passion for leadership at 8 years of age on the basketball court, a drive that led him to captain the University of Calgary team and later coach at high school and collegiate levels, mentoring Division I athletes and working alongside Magic Johnson. Transitioning into business, he held leadership roles across industries including oil, gas, where he's always called coach. A pancreatic cancer survivor, he emerged with a renewed mission to guide others with a higher purpose. Now, a result-driven business coach, 80% of his clients have doubled their revenues in the first year. His journey proves that true coaching extends far beyond the game. Coach Hess, welcome. And what is your favorite quote or saying, sir?
Oh my gosh. I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast with y'all. Thank you for the intro. We're talking primarily about my journey in sports and how that shaped my approach to coaching. I learned when you go back to that why, sometimes it takes a traumatic event in your life to really understand that. We have it with us all our lives, but we don't necessarily uncover it until later. In my case, I uncovered that when I was 8 years old, had the ball in the middle of the court, going down the floor, squeaking shoes, made a pass to somebody, scores a layup, and we win the game. That feeling at 8 years old locked into me and it drove me throughout my life. That's the feeling I looked for as I go out. I did it all the time. I just never knew I didn't have the clarity on it. So I went through this little pancreatic thing, and then the clarity was there. I go, oh yeah, it came to me. I thought about it, and this is what it is. When you don't know the difference between when you're playing and working, you got your why. It's a shame I didn't really have that understood earlier in my life. And so the whole book and what I'm bringing, the business code, is about finding that peak experiences in your why and then specializing and taking quantum leaps in it as you move forward and understanding when that massive amount of knowledge comes to you in order to manifest that. And that's where I identified in Peak Experiences as a book, 12 different case studies where you can take quantum leaps with things that have happened. And that was one of them where it traced that back to my experience. And then that first pass was a peak experience, but I built on it through my life and identified it. So I'm using that as my springboard into being the business coach that I am. I take it very seriously. It's more about changing the world than it is about putting dollars in your pocket, because it makes a big difference when you can help guide people and the opportunities. I can go into explaining some of the fundamentals of what I work on with people to make that 80% doubling that's been happening since I've been doing this coaching business.
What do you attribute that? Those are great numbers. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I'm going to go right back to my original coaching, knowing your plan, knowing what you're going to do with your approach. As a basketball coach, I'd show up at the first of the year with my practice plan schedule already for the whole year. We aren't starting basketball for a while, but guess who got all the prime basketball practice times? Me. As a business owner, what I do with every client is each quarter we come together for a quarterly kickoff. At the quarterly kickoff, we get into tactical planning for 90 days, right down to the calendar. So you've got 3 goals, but when you take these goals and identify them through my process, only 3, one of them being personal, we got to take care of ourselves first and foremost. Otherwise, the others don't matter. A must-have business goal, and then typically a marketing or a team building type goal, depends on where you are in your business. Shape those up and build those into habits that you're going to do and allocate the exact time you're going to put into doing it for that quarter. At the end of that quarter, guess what? 90 days is how you build habits. Habits become lifestyles. And now you're on to a whole new level, primary part of growing businesses that have been with me for a period of time. If they do this each quarter and they're following the structure, we're coaching to the plan. It's pretty straightforward. The second area that's critical in making a difference in coaching businesses and getting this kind of fantastic growth I've experienced is knowing your numbers. There's 4 types of cash in the business. It's straightforward. We know that you got to have revenue, and then out of revenue, we take those expenses out and we end up with our profit, and we better have profit. If we don't, we better change some things real fast. Third thing is, what about cash flow? Absolutely critical for a business coach, because your accountants are looking at what's already happened. We got to look at what's in front of us and strive for these dreams and goals by letting our numbers guide us. And then the fourth one is equity. Working systems so that you get a business that can run without you, and in the process, you increase the equity, whether you're planning on moving as a legacy or whatever you do. So within the cash flow, that's where the difference is made. Each month, every one of my clients will have 12 months in front of them projected cash flow, just a budget, nothing big, but it's nothing more than a P&L. And then what we do is we put the actuals in every month. And take a look from those actuals as we go along month over month. It isn't long till you see the trends, the patterns, and where you need to be more profitable. Get the doubling in growth, as I've experienced. That's a key point. I think it's just simply knowing your numbers. And I coached it that hard. I guess you get the feeling of that by the way I present it. But it's what I like to do. And it comes back to, as a basketball coach, I followed my stats. I knew when we were going to come across a team that was getting high turnover to steal ratios, right? These guys are pressing a lot. So what do we got to do? We got to get ourselves prepared for beating that press. And we did. And then that's how we win. The third area I'll touch on is culture. I think culture is critical in building a business and how you grow that and building a winning team and so on. Again, from my basketball scenario, taking it into the business. When I walked into Westlake Village High School, was a school where I became the head coach there, that had a very successful career and very wealthy area, I will say. I walked into the gym and we had 6'11", 6'9", 6'10" front end, and we had some big kids, and they all were interested in looking good and been told they were good a whole bunch of times, but I'm not sure they were that good. So as a coach, I'm looking at this going, how do I turn this into a real positive thing for everybody? I rallied right away around a cultural thought, and that is Psycho D. So I created a whole theme on Psycho D. Every practice for every one of my programs, 4 teams in the school, every one of them had a half hour dedicated to be what we called Psycho D, which is a whole bunch of drills and diving around and getting mindset crazy about setting a common goal. The common goal was simply hold teams under 50 points. Let's play D like nobody plays D. Through that theme and by building that culture, all of a sudden the band had songs on Psycho D. The cheerleaders had their shirts shooting around. It was Psycho D crazy. They had people denying, people getting off the bus. It was our theme, and it built a culture. We sent 5 guys off to Division I, full ride scholarships out of that program in 3 years. We played against a lot of guys that you would recognize were in the NBA and so on in that league. It was a culture. And so how do you take that culture into your business? Have a common goal for what you're doing with your business so that everybody's pointing to that Northern Star, call it whatever you want, and everybody's rowing in the same direction. I think that's critical to the success of a culture, along with great leadership. You got to have good leadership that's going to guide people and pull them rather than maybe push them a little bit. That's a fundamental piece of it. And I think 100% inclusion. Everybody has to feel like they're part of it. I can't believe how I go to meetings sometimes and people sit around a room meeting over meeting. I remember in my days at Halliburton, people would come to these meetings every week and never say a thing. I'm thinking, what's the value of this? You got to have everybody involved to have a winning team. They all have to have a role and an action plan that they're chasing. Here's what I'm going to do to make a difference in this company and reach this common goal. And this is my part. And that becomes professional development and, of course, growth of people. And that's really important to any business, of course, or any team that we have. So I yacked a bunch at you there, guys. I don't know. Tell me what you think.
It's great. You just told us bench warmers. You're part of a team. You're an active participant. Man, you also, from reading your bio, Magic Johnson, having that exposure to that. And to me, that expresses it's front and center. You've been in the game in a good way. Even if you have a gift at something, basketball, whatever the case might be, it's also practice, right? It's not just, you might have a natural talent, but hitting the nail on the head on that one,
are the peak experiences that one has in life, and the quality of those are directly associated to deliberate practice. How much deliberate practice have you put in to get the opportunity to have that experience that then quantum leaps you to the next level? You better have put in the practice to get there, and most of the ones that are really worth having. Believe that. On the Magic Johnson side, I'll tell you what an experience as far as an individual that is really about giving and helping and loves to give that assist. We lined up real nice when we first met. I remember I got the opportunity while I was doing my MBA at Cal Lutheran University to run his camps. And so I had lunch with him a couple of times. And one of the things in culture is rituals. You don't have a ritual involved in your business where this is going to happen all the time, right? In my case, every one of my coaching sessions opened with a whiffle. What do I feel like expressing? And that's the way we open, and we end every one with a whoosh, where we lock in that new information we learn and we shake out the old, whoosh it in. That's the ritual. In Magic's case, one of the things we did in his camp, it's just phenomenal. And get chills just starting to tell you about it. It's so cool. Each group, say we had 100 kids in our camp, so we had 10 different groups. Each group had a different sound off. Yeah, whatever it might be. In the morning, when we would start up and warming up and talking, and he'd do his stories and get everybody fired up about the day, he'd point at groups and they'd make their noise. On Friday, after we'd been doing this all week, he starts doing the same thing. When I'm pointing at your group, make your noise. He just was an orchestrator, pointed to one group, to the next group, to the next group. And it turns out it's the Michigan State Spartans fight song to the T. It was just unbelievable how awesome it was for everybody to realize this is the Michigan State fight song. And that was pretty cool. One of the things Magic, he felt that I was a really smart guy because I did this, let's put it that way. One of the things I believe in strongly, and I learned as a coach and as a teacher, is that you need to know names in order to have control, have effect, have relationships, have all the things that you want to have in life. You really should know people's names. As a teacher, the sooner I knew everybody's name, the better class I'd have. Very important. When anybody came to camp, how do you know everybody's name? And what a difference when you do. So all I did, and I always did in every camp I ran, I just put a tape on the side of their shoe with their name on it. When you're coaching, you're looking at their feet a lot, you got their name. Magic, he's looking at this going, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen, coach. This is, because he could call people by their name, and he loved it. I continue today, as you can see, this board behind me for Actionable Business. Every time I have a client, and people appreciate that. You take yourself from an expected level to an appreciated level just because the most important thing in their life is probably their name. So I'd like to share that because it came from a little bit of the Magic support, but I'd continue to do it in business. And I really make a point of knowing people's names.
Greg, how do you help business discover and use their why?
Oh boy, that's a great question, Wade. In my book, I've got one section on page 88. I have a little exercise in there that drives people to that. It's basically where they make a list of their best moments that they've had in their life. You want to get them about 20 of them over a period of time. Then I have them categorize those moments in experiences, achievements, relationships, and objects. From there, you take a look at where have I classified, where are my values in this, what do I really care about? Take your best moments of life and try to build off of that. I'm a pretty positive, optimistic thinker. I don't like to go. A lot of people teach what not to say rather than what to say. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But in this case, I use that type of technique where we list out the values. There's much, much more. As a coach, you build a relationship with people that goes deeper. I use a basic formula that rhymes with my name for success. That is 5 letters. Dreams. Got to get people dreaming. What are they thinking about? Where are they going? Number 2 is goals. What goals are you setting? What do those look like? Number 3 is you got some learning to do. If the goals don't make you learn, they're not big enough, right? Number 4 is you got to get out there and plan it, right? You got to get it into your calendar. Let's make sure we have mastery of what we're going to do with our time. And then to take action. The old Nike, let's just do it, baby. And that's my formula for success. Finding people's why and all of that motivational side of what you need to bring to the play as coach.
So in this particular space, when you're talking about when you're coaching a group of folks, they're usually like, okay, how do I improve? How do I do better at what I'm doing? How do you get them to become cohesive? In business, you might have a crew working with you, for you, around you. They might not even be your employees. It might be your fractional entities like the CFO, the CRO, the CMO, or just the accountant as part of your team. You're paying them for the services rendered, but they're not employees per se. How do you make that gel into one unified force?
At my level as a business coach, I see myself as a board member on a lot of these companies in a way, and their sounding board, as well as somebody to give advice. I engage myself directly with the marketing outsource team, and I go to the meetings representing the company. In the process of doing that, I'm bringing people together. The owner of the company is involved with that directly, and I'm just, their right-hand man is the way I like to position myself more. But I think that showing up at all the different, like I sit with the accountants and I say, hey, here's what we want to have for pro forma. Can you make sure you feed us your P&L each month at this point, the sooner the better, in this way? They're part of the team and see what our goals are. And you start to bring the pieces together. But that doesn't have to be the business coach. It can be anybody. It's just a matter of making sure that you're feeling comfortable and being transparent. And a lot of them are embarrassed. As a business coach, where they may have been embarrassed for the first few months, it doesn't stay that way very long. They become very proud. I try to encourage them to be sharing, transparent, open. Everybody has their fears in presenting to whatever it might be. And so I find those fears and work with people to put those behind them. As a coach, it could be family relations. I had a guy who was way overweight. He's going through the surgery to get his weight down. Then he went through a divorce. And I'm still coaching. It's a roofing business. Then he gets remarried. Then his partner decides he doesn't want to be his partner anymore. I saved them probably $50,000 not going to arbitration and mediation and all the things they were going to have to do to break this company up. I made it happen so that everybody was happy and made logical common sense out of the situation. That's all you do, right? And it's amazing how far you can go in these different ways to help people. And of course, that roofing company is rocking like crazy right now. It's really exciting.
Greg, a lot of our listeners are technicians. How do you help them work on their business instead of in their business?
Oh, isn't that an important question and an important thing to realize? From my coaching perspective, what I did is I built this business. I made sure I knew how to run WordPress. I made sure I knew how to run a MailChimp program or HubSpot or all those. I got good at all the little tools my clients were going to need to use. And as I became good at understood what those are, now my advice for clients is in order to work on your business rather than in, is that we're outsourcing a whole bunch of things that make sense to outsource. I've done that myself. I have 4 people working for me as an outsourced group, and I've used that model by learning myself a little bit to apply that. People need to give up, and that's the hardest part, just to give up. I've got a lawyer that just can't give anything up. It's got to be his way or the highway. And here he is, 45 years old and probably working 85 hours a week and unhealthy with 3 young girls. As a coach, I can't let this happen to the guy. You got to get in there and get him to understand that he's got to give up. It hasn't been easy doing that, but I just keep putting stuff in front of him to the point of let's push prices up in order to reduce the amount of work you have, but you work less, make more, and just hire people that have the skills that you need and trust them. But he just has a hard time giving up. And finally, after several years, he's coming to the conclusion in self-discovery that I got to give up and let it go. It's okay. It's going to be okay. It's fine. It's taken him that long. Some people, it's hard to get them to give up. Really hard.
You find that ego or confidence, for some people, they have the imposter syndrome, right? So the ego is not very strong. Then other people, the ego is way too strong and they think they're Superman, they can fly. If they go off the side of the building, gravity's going to show them a new reality. How do you get people to rejig that in their headspace? Either tone it up or tone it down because they're not operating within a good way for themselves for what they want to do. How do you help them get that kind of honed in?
I was real fortunate to be able to play at a very high level in basketball along with this coaching experience. A lot of times there was a lot of garbage talked on the court. People would be trying to intimidate you and stuff goes on. My philosophy at that time as a player was, I'm going to talk with a scoreboard. You guys talk all you want, but watch the score and win games. As a business coach, in that experience and trying to get people to brag on themselves a little bit, how do you do that if you have the empirical support of what you've done and you use that with authentic bragging on yourself? It works. It works, but you got to be authentic. And it's those that sometimes are a little extremes or making stuff up that isn't real. You're looking through this, and when you find that out, those aren't the people you really want to trust. But it is hard. The hardest part, I think, is just letting go of telling people what you're good at, and at the same time having the confidence that you have. For me, you got the numbers behind you to support it. I think that's a lot of it. It's not just that I'm here to cheerlead you and make you feel good as a coach and be a fluffy guy. It's about what are our results and what's going on.
Fluffy guy?
I like to get to where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
Coach, tell me about the secrets, the business hats that helps a business thrive instead of struggle.
Wearing all the hats, you're saying, huh? Yeah, and the transition of pulling that away. Everybody struggles with, what do I pass off to my virtual assistant, for example, and how do I manage that? And how do I decide who's right for me to have on my team at that level? I want to say everyone, I'm running into that a lot with my clients right now. And which hats do they want to take off? I'd have a little matrix that I do, is the things you do in the business that you like and the things you don't like. Maybe we should figure out those things you don't like and figure out how to get somebody else to do them, because if you don't like it, you're probably not doing very good at it. And so that's one way to let them pick their areas of where I should put my hats on. Many of my clients just hate the numbers. You don't know your numbers, you don't know your business, folks. How do we fix that? And of course, we can put some outsourcing and everything else, but the bottom line, if you're owning the business, you better know what your P&L is looking like. There's no passing that one off in terms of understanding it. But things like your marketing strategies, what you're going to do with posting, how much posting am I going to do on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, where are those posts, what themes, how am I going to follow that in consistency? Those are really important. And I think those are things that can be put out to other people really quickly and managed well. Also, the reconciliation of QuickBooks is pretty fundamental if you want to set somebody up to do that. But realistically, in most of the smaller businesses, they can reconcile their QuickBooks in about 15 minutes if they do it every month. They don't have 10,000 transactions, but businesses do. You got a different scale, of course.
From a client perspective, the person you're coaching, they're in the business space. Then you have their clients. How do you get them to... Sometimes knowing your client really helps, right? So in this case, it's doing the basketball game, but now understanding who you're playing against and the crowd. So you have a couple stakeholders here. One's your opposition, the other one is the audience, right? And then there might be another one, your scholarship. How do you get your clients to realize that stress is not a bad thing, right? The no pain, no gain piece. How do you get them to focus and leverage it? How do you get them to leverage understanding their clients? Right now, where you're living, I don't think you need snow tires. Where we're living, you want to be able to have snow tires and learn how to skid a car down the highway. Not on purpose, but you have to get out of the skid.
Yeah, it's interesting with the clients that I have. The question you're asking, let me make sure I'm clear.
What are the influences, right? Whether it's a headache, numbers, new legislation that just came out, it could just be, there's a change in economics that's going around. It just could be a storm. Who knows? Something just pops up going, the path isn't straight anymore. You got a detour coming.
And the relationship from me as a business coach to the business owner, and therefore the business owner to our client base, I have some standard approaches that I work with. They design the system, but I've got a model, and I call that critical non-essentials. Let's make sure we have a system in place that when a new client comes on, it's an insurance agency and they just bought a $50,000 policy, we might treat them a little different than those that bought a $20,000 or an auto policy. And what is it? How do they go into the system so that we keep them engaged and at the same time become our best salespeople? If we spend 80% of our time taking care of our clients, that 20% of time you should be selling will be taken care of by the 80%. They'll sell for you. And so I think As a business coach, I work really close in trying to identify that relationship and how to grow that relationship, because the more personal you make it, the better off you're going to be. For in my case, I send out anniversary cards to every one of my clients. I take pictures off of Facebook and I put it onto a card. I actually write a hand note in the card and send them that directly. And they appreciate that. It's a difference in taking people from expected to appreciate it and then moving it to a distinguished relationship. Coach Hess is the guy, he's on top of it. I can trust him. He's going to give me a fair price. And that's what we want all our businesses to have, that feeling. And I think that's part of that building of that relationship. In terms of outside influences, one of the things I do, basic business stuff, every quarter I'll do a SWOT analysis. I did one this morning with one of my clients, and I just write up, here's what we got going for our strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. At this point, let's get ourselves planned for the second quarter. So we want to take a look at that. And that's what I do with every client to get them focused and what are the problems. You can see we've got a chump effect here. Another area that I use assessments in and focus hard in making a difference. When you go back, I use this as a tool for communication style and break it down into kind of three things. Know yourself, know your team. So I make it part of my winning team. And then thirdly, know your clients. How are your clients fitting in the profile and how do we handle them accordingly? It's really exciting when I do a training session and we'll role model selling a water bottle if we want, but we're going to sell it to a D versus C versus I versus S. What kind of language? What do they care about? How does that fit for your product? And then they write these quadrants in 4 different quadrants and they write out their actual script. Practice it about 10 times with me. It's like taking me back to the gym. Love that stuff. And then they never have to worry about it again. They got it in their mind and they'll be able to use that tool, recognize by asking a question like, how was your weekend? If somebody tells you, had a great weekend, that's it. They didn't bring any social up, and now I need to adjust my language accordingly. I love to teach people how to interact and communicate and become more successful, doing to others they'd like to be treated by you, because they're not you. So recognize that. Got me fired up about that. Sorry, guys.
Makes the podcast a lot more interesting. Partially because of your background in sports. Something that I think you do that I'd like you to unpack is how to make employees and referral sources part of your team instead of just entities.
Yeah. Simple things. Making sure we've got the right uniform. Whatever it is, I might be a little badge, but I'm part of something that's recognized on me. And it works. It's cheesy, but it works. And for our roofing company, we make sure everybody's wearing our t-shirts that gets on that roof, even though they're from wherever. I'm part of the team feeling, but again, really important is that everybody feels like they're a part of the team by 100% participation. What I'm going to be listened to, I'm going to be heard, and why I do the whiffle. Even if I have a roofing crew, like I've done, people are going out on moving van companies and they're going to go out and pack a house and put it all in the truck and all that. I do a whiffle with them before they go out in the morning when I was coaching them to get them tuned up and pumped up. They brought me in for that and they loved it. Everybody had a chance to say their position. They feel better because of that when people get a chance.
Explain the whiffle.
What I feel like expressing. That's it. Now I do directed whiffles and sometimes I do whiffles that people have a tendency to go real long. Yeah, so then I try to do a quiffle. Then we make quiffle. That's a quick whiffle.
Do you have grandkids?
Yeah.
They must love these conversations. It has, those terms are catchy and would appeal to a wide range of folks. You just put a smile on your face. I think that's awesome.
Thanks. Part of the rituals that you want to put in place really works. Every one of my clients adopt it as their style and they use it as their staff meeting and so on. And yeah, I walked into a meeting at the HTL the other day, Hate to Lose, which we're teaching people how to be superior pitchers and hitters. And of course, parents love to live their lives with their kids. I realized that when I was a coach at Westlake Village in a big way. This is a very good market, especially with NIL coming up. We got an 18,000-foot facility indoor, and they got all the machines and measurements. And I walk into the staff meeting, and as soon as I walk in, everybody stops what they're doing. I said, all right, let's have a whiffle. They're waiting for it. I don't even have to introduce it now. They're waiting for it to happen. It's great. And the more you can have people buying into your rituals and your culture, the more they're going to come together as a team and be stronger, have more success.
As an author, I'm really interested in both your win and your why of your book?
Oh boy. The why, I think, as much as anything, is a little bit of legacy, right? Let's make sure that we have what we've done out there. I recognize from a business coach that it would quickly become the best business card I've ever had. And that was certainly a motivator in doing it. The way I set myself up to build the book is that I just thought of this peak experience concept. I've been thinking about it for a long time, probably back from when I studied Maslow in the early 70s in college and the hierarchy of needs and all. I studied that along the way, but I always had it in. So what I did is I built 12 videos. I just took videos, for example, the opening chapters about me going off a 20-foot harness down into powder up to my neck and skiing it in a 3D feel and feeling that 3D effect and what effect that had on everything else that grew out of that experience. So I just described that. I rode a bike from Jasper, Alberta to Los Angeles, which is a whole transformation kind of time. I did a 2,200-mile solo bicycle ride from Jasper. When I made my transition from being a basketball coach, what am I going to study while I'm doing my graduate work and being an assistant coach at Cal Lu? So I rode 23 days, 2,300 miles, thought about that, and came to the conclusion at the end of that, you know what? This world is changing. And the way it's changing, what I'm seeing is that we're going from a command line compute to a graphical user interface. And when I saw this graphical user, I said, you know what? I'm not going to miss this boat. So that's what I did my MBA, and that's what I focused in. That's the learning curve I chased after that for 30 years, really, all the way to the point of becoming the chief advisor for cloud services at Halliburton, and then the pancreatic story from there. But that long bike ride, that's sharpening the saw stuff. And we know Covey, and I think we need to do these things. Now, that's maybe a little extreme. Some of the stories and experiences that I have in the book on that trip, especially y'all solo, you get a little lonely, so you start running into people. Hooked up with a couple of Mormons and a couple of Aussies that were riding together and convinced the Aussies that they had to camp out rather than stay in motels. And they spent one night's hotel on a little bit of equipment and had the rest of their trip camping out, and they loved it. But the Aussies would drink a couple beer at night. And of course, the Mormon guys it just got more interesting because I was raised in Idaho and I knew the Mormon culture pretty well. So I could play the middle guy and feed different things. And what a hoot I had with that.
Name and where to get it.
Where to get my book? It's on Amazon under Coach Hess, Peak Experience. It's also an Audible that I did myself. And there's also a Kindle version. It's been very good to me. I'm writing another one now where once I wrote this one, a lawyer here in my area came to me and said, hey, I want to write a book and I want you to be my co-author. And so I joined up with him to do that. And I've written about 30,000 words and he's written about 2. So I don't know how we're going to make this work, but it's all about how to build a business, run a business, and complete a business. That's what that book's about. I hope to have that out in May.
If you're going to give someone who's starting out or running a small, medium-sized business, what top things would you just recommend? What are the key things that you want to have them walk away with?
When they're first starting a business, I think getting under control 4 areas. Number 1 is destination. Where are we going? Why are we going there? What's your motivation for doing it? Are you really up for what's in front of you? And is your dream big enough? The second one is mastery of time. If you're going to do this, how are you going to organize your time to do this? What are the goals? Take these goals and let's put them into a plan that, as I mentioned earlier, get right down to the tactical level of let's take action and have a real solid structure to go from. The third one is mastery of money. What are we going to do about money? Where are we now? What do we do? Do we have to get money? Are we going to do it organically? And if we are, how are we going to fund the marketing that we need to do and all the other pieces? But having mastery of that money, you better have control of that because no cash, no business, okay? We all know that. And then the fourth one is mastery of delivery. How are we going to deliver what we have? So what's our packaging look like? What does our product look like? How do we make sure that the sales cycle goes the way we want it to? All of those things need to be really tightened in place. And then you can get serious about marketing. And marketing for me is math. It's a test and measurement game. Identify your segments and pick up on 5 areas that I like to look at in marketing. Number of leads, conversion rate, repeat business, average dollar sale, and your margin. Now you can build predictable profitability fairly quickly. if you measure that properly. A quick example of that is an electrician that I've worked with. Started with me in 21 or so, had about $120,000 top line revenue. The profit was about a negative 16,000. Next year we went to 250,000 and had a profit around 25, 30,000. So we were in much better shape. But what we did during that year is we invested about $15,000 in marketing and advertising and tested and measured exactly as I just described before under those 5 areas for each segment. And then the next year, guess what happened? We went to 475,000 and we only spent $5,000 on marketing because we knew what was going to score. And it really came down to Generax, the bottom line of what we tested and measured. So test and measuring can build predictable profitability in marketing. That's my point there as far as the foundations of how to build this baby up.
So Coach, what areas with clients do you like to work in? Maybe geography, maybe what they do, and how do we reach you?
I'm loving what I'm doing with some of these athletic facilities, focused on the youth and developing youth. But I really like people that want to make a difference in the world, right? They've got a business, an idea, a concept that they could use some help in getting to where they need to be. That's what it's about, is what are we going to change to make things better for others and leave it as a legacy so it continues to do that. That, to me, is the most interesting area for me to put the rest of my life. I'm turning 70 this year. I'm counting my time here and checking things off, saying, let's do the right things all the time. Because, I don't know, maybe I'll live to be 100. I hope so.
And how do we reach you?
CoachHess.com is the easiest way to get to me. Just my name, Coach Hess, and then .com. You can find me on LinkedIn all over the place. You can find me in lots of different areas. If you just do a search on Google, you're going to find a lot of Coach Hess. I'm on YouTube under the desk of Coach Hess. There's probably close to 300 videos that I've built over time out there. So there's lots of materials to get to me. People that are interested in a coaching relationship and those kind of things, I have a detailed process to go through there. I don't know if it's detailed, but fill out a business background questionnaire. Then we have a meeting and we build a 3-year strategy plan for your business. And I interject what I think coaching would help. And if they want to hire me as a coach, great. If not, they take the 3-year plan and go do it on their own. Or I may feel that they're not quite the right client as well, just not the right match. You got to have that time. Otherwise, you're not going to get very far. You don't need to find that stuff after you've made a commitment. You're not compatible. Yeah.
I want to say thank you to Coach Greg Hess, my co-host Wayne Pratt, and the Knack for Business listeners. Folks, if you need some coaching, you want to get some ritual in routine to help foster success, reach out to Greg.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVINSIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter U.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people: Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert; Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host; Jovan Strika from EF Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space; then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner; and Wayne Pratt from Motive8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer: please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas, prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.